Okay.
Hi, Tyra.
Good evening. And then we start in September.
I was trying to check it on my phone. It said no restriction. You got it?
I changed my. Well, see, I'm working from home.
I can see the bottom on the bottom. I was just
We
trying
can
to
work
get it
on campus, this side of campus, because of the police officers' services. Is everyone ready?
Yes, ma'am.
It's live.
Good evening. Welcome to Winslow special meeting, May 17th, 2023. Public notice of this meeting was given to all board members and associates, and a notice dated 5/12/2023. Adequate electronic notice of the public meeting has been provided, specifying the time, place, and manner in which this meeting is being conducted. It was advertised in the Courier Post, posted in all schools, the administration office, the municipal building, the library, Buck-Dougall Center, Edgewood Acres, Elmtown, and the Winslow Township Post Office. The mission statement. The mission of Winslow Township School District, a large, diverse, and growing community, is to educate all students to become independent, lifelong learners, critical thinkers, and caring and confident members of their community. The district, in partnership with the community, in a climate of cooperation and mutual respect, will provide an academic environment which values excellence and diversity, encourage students to strive for personal excellence, and assist them in acquiring the knowledge, skills, and attitudes necessary to contribute positively to a rapidly changing world. Roll call.
Ms. Dredden,
Here.
Ms. Esposito,
Ms. Esposito will be a few minutes late. She's coming from a conference in Atlantic City for the school board.
thank you. Ms. Martin, present. Ms. Moore, present. Ms. Nieves,
Present.
Mr. Thomas,
Here.
Ms. Thomas,
Absent.
Ms. Peterson,
Present.
and Ms. Pitts.
Ms. Pitts is also going to be a few minutes late. She's attending the same conference that Ms. Esposito is attending. So they expect arrival is at 6:15 or before.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Will we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
2022-2023 district goals. 1, student achievement. Continue to implement best practices for delivering instruction to students utilizing all available and appropriate instructional models. This shall include ensuring articulation at all grade levels throughout the district, focus on innovative classroom instruction at all grade levels, ensuring all students have equal access to equipment and resources needed to facilitate and promote student learning in any setting, evaluation and updating all district programs, including athletics and extracurricular activities, accountability of all district staff. Continue to foster safe and positive school environment that is conducive to teaching and learning. Focus on building relationships among staff and families that will result in increased learning and more effective instruction. Promote communication and feedback opportunities Emphasis on collaboration with all district stakeholders. Promote an inclusive, diverse, and compassionate learning environment. 3, market our strengths, our achievements to all stakeholders to increase capacity for greater parent, caregiver, community support. Continue with our public relations marketing plan. Continue to work with the various advisory committees in the district. Focus on refining our communication methods to better market our school district.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Public comments. The Winslow Township Board of Education highly values the input of citizens in making important decisions that affect the children of our community. We also believe in the rights of citizens to observe board meetings, to ensure that all of our citizens have the opportunity to attend school board meetings and to offer comment, and to ensure that the board can conduct the important business of the district. We ask the speakers following guidelines for making public comment. The board secretary will recognize those individuals in the audience who wish to make comment. Please respect the following procedures. 1, all members of the public attending school board meetings must treat each other and the board with respect. 2, state your full name and address. 3, please limit your comments to 4 minutes. 4, submit your questions to the Board of Education with your name, address, telephone numbers where you can be contacted. Your questions will be answered within a reasonable time. And 5, individuals offering citizens' comment are not permitted to make personal attacks on any board, district employee, board member, or other testifiers or members of the public. I entertain a motion to go into public comment.
Motion to go into public comments.
Present second.
It's been moved by Mrs. Martin, second by Mrs. Dredden. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion has carried.
Madam Vice President, no one has signed up for public comments this evening.
Is there anyone viewing us?
No.
I entertain a motion for adjournment of public comments.
Motion to adjourn public comments.
Present second.
It's been moved by Mrs. Martin and second by Mrs. Dredden to approve adjournment of public comments. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion has carried. Board evaluation, self-evaluation. Board members, I know you had a copy of it from that. Did everyone bring theirs with them?
Yes.
You didn't? I had to share. Okay, great. I left my laptop out. Thank you. Okay, board members, how would you like to proceed? You saw a little bit, there was only 8 of us that did the assessment total. And you see the breakdown from 4 to not observed. And it's broken down how many. It says 4 vital, 3 very important, 2 somewhat important, 1 not important, and 0 for not observed. And then they average the scores. Would you like to go page by page so that we have an understanding and then we know where we're moving forward towards?
Yes,
Yes.
Okay,
I think we should concentrate on the
comments?
comments, my
Okay.
suggestion.
Thank you so much. Everyone in agreement with looking at the comments?
Yes. Yes.
Down here. Thank you, thank you. And welcome, Ms. Esposito.
Thank you. I don't know if you heard from this.
I know both of you were coming from the same one. You're just a little faster. She said 6:15. Okay, so you must drive like I do. So I thank you. So let's look at comments. Do you want to read them out loud? So Would you like to read each one out loud? And we can go straight down, starting with Ms. Esposito, the first one, then we'll go straight through and have discussion.
Okay, so the first comment under the first section just says, I have not seen the review of action plans to address district goals during my time as a board member, nor have I seen adequate measure of our progress towards these goals. I think we could do a better job in reaching out to our community to get broader input when enacting policies and goals.
Any comments on that? I think this is really touching bases, if I would say, with the marketing committee, greater input through the community outreach efforts. Am I correct?
I think so.
And I think that your plan, the marketing committee's plan to, is it August? July, that we would be actually having individual meetings within each of the wards so that we can hear the concerns or input that our community. So that's one way of measuring. And I guess when we are out there, we can actually take notes, or we can ask them to jot them down and then bring that feedback back to us. Is there any further discussion on that comment?
There is, Madam Vice President, I think, if I may. I don't think it's just a responsibility that should be set upon the marketing committee. I think it's a responsibility that should be set upon the board. It's not just one specific event, but it's all community events that we need to have a greater presence at. So we're not just asking people to come to our events, that we're also going to their events. That way it would give them the chance to talk in a non-formative way about things they may want to talk about, and show a greater equity to be interested in things that they're interested in and that this community is interested in as well. Just my thoughts.
And let me correct you, the individual meetings that, for the different wards, I was assuming that every board member would be at least attending some of them or all of them. And then the events, you're absolutely right, we do have Juneteenth coming up, and I forgot the date on that. I think it's June 17th, is it? And then we also have Winslow Day, but there's other events. So I think if you're getting comments, that you jot them down so that we can collect them monthly, just to look at it and see how we're pacing ourselves. Okay. But thank you very much for that. Any other input?
I would just like to say too, I mean, not just from a community standpoint and getting feedback, but, during our board meetings, maybe one of the board meetings a month, we should, kind of pause and look and see if we're actually, the business that we're doing is in line with the district goals, just to kind of touch base and keep those goals in the forefront of our mind.
So perhaps you're suggesting that we, that one board meeting, that we line up what we're doing according to the goals.
Right.
Okay. I'm jotting down some notes, so please forgive me. Ms. Dredden, you want to take the next comment?
Yes. Collaboration with the community helps establish effective policy making and planning for district goals and vision.
Any feedback on that comment?
Other than the event that we have planning with the board members chat in July, is there anything else or any other mechanism that has been in place or is going to be in place to get that input from the community?
I know last year, and correct,
We did Winslow Family Day.
thank you, I couldn't remember which one, and there was a survey, and that feedback was gathered and sent to each board member, so we will probably continue with that if everyone's in agreement.
I agree. I think though that it would be a good idea if we were a little bit more intentional
Mhm.
and that we make that part of our district plan to outline how we're gonna be outreaching to the community.
Okay.
And if you look at the comment further down, it relates to that being just not more than once a year.
And I think one of the mechanisms that we do have in place with each board member being assigned to a specific school, you know, maybe that might be something that board members report out on what's going on with their individual schools to kind of keep the rest of the board members kind of in tune with what's going on in the district. Could be another way, and that's something we already have in place.
Ms. Evans, I think that's a great idea. How often do you think they should report out?
I guess we can discuss on that, because I mean, certain times of the year, I mean, things, you know, things aren't going on. We know at the end of the year, there tends to be more, you know, things and events going on. I mean, depending on what school you're at, I know we get emails being invited to things, and just, maybe just sending an email, touching base with the principal, you know, to see how things are going in those assigned schools.
Should visitation be involved in that?
What do you think? I'll defer to Dr. Poteet on that one.
I think, that is the primary reason board members are assigned to a building, is to be that liaison between the school and the board itself. I just have one question as you go through the self-assessment, and that is, are you focusing on the district's goals, or are you focusing on the board goals? Which goals are you
It's
focusing on?
board goals. We're assessing what we have mentioned in our board self-evaluation,
right.
so it's the board goals,
Okay,
what
so-
we are doing.
Right.
Yours is the district goal.
Right, right. So I just wanted to make sure, because as a board, you have to decide what you feel is in the best interest of the board, because you represent, of course, each entity of the community itself. So if you feel that visiting the schools periodically and reporting is something you feel is going to benefit your constituents, then I would say, fine. That's the primary reason you are assigned to a building. You have to decide how often you want to do it and how you want to report out, that sort of thing.
Any other comments?
Well said.
And I think also in addition to us deciding on how, you know, how often we want to report out, et cetera, I think that maybe is a conversation that we would have with the respective schools that we are representing. How often we should.
I have a request. Can people use their mics, because I can't hear?
All right.
Thank you.
And I believe they're supposed to.
May I just,
No? You told me they were supposed to hit the button.
may I just piggyback off of what Ms. Esposito stated? Whatever the board decides in terms of visiting schools, I think it should be consistent, you know, so that you have all the board members pretty much doing the same thing, as opposed to one board member going to schools quite a few times and then other school board members not going, whatever. So whatever you do, I think it should be consistent across the board.
I actually disagree with that. Okay, use my mic. That's everybody else. So I think that those who can do, not everyone has a lot of time available to go to the schools. Others do and may want to go more often. So I think it's more what we're able to do. Just my opinion.
And in addition to that, I would also add, like I said, I think.
Microphone.
I can tell them. In addition to that, I'd also add that, like I said, I think it's a conversation between HSA members at the school, the principal, you know, how often, and like Ms. Nieves said, some schools are very active or have a lot of activities going on. It could depend on the time of year. There are just a lot of variables. And I think it depends on, I think it can be a conversation between the schools and the board member. So it might differ.
Just for clarification, and I'm not going to say much anymore because this is board goals and y'all decide how you want to do it. But what I would say is this. Basically what I'm hearing is pretty much what happens all the time. Schools that are doing a lot of things, you used to say to me, well, why isn't this school doing the same thing that school A is doing? And I would say because we leave it up to the discretion of the principal and the faculty, because you have staff that do more things than others. Now I'm hearing you say, well, we will visit according to those activities. So you're pretty much saying the same thing that I've been saying was an issue before. So now you're gonna have board members reporting out, doing everything, and then someone's gonna say, well, why isn't the board member from school A not reporting out as much as the board member from school B? You're basically saying what I've always said. It depends on the building principal. We don't dictate how many things or activities you have to have. We leave it up to the building principal and the staff and HSA because of what they want to do. So it's just a point that I wanted to mention because you're going to have people reporting out and then folks in the audience will say, well, wait a minute, school 1 is reporting out every month. We haven't heard from school 3 or school, just an example. But it's okay. I don't have a problem with that because I don't want to get involved to the point where these are your goals. You decide how you want to do it. And I'll speak when spoken to. Thank you.
Well, Dr. Coetzee, if I may add to that. So I think when I said I defer to, because this has always been my question. I mean, do we need to, schedule these visits ahead of
Yes.
time?
Yes,
showing
absolutely,
that
yes.
sort of thing. That way
Yes.
we're not interrupting.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
That
Yeah.
sort of thing.
Yes, you're
So
absolutely right.
when we're invited, we know that we're
Right.
asked to be, but the
Yes,
schedule-
absolutely, absolutely, yes, because in as much as you're board members, we don't expect you showing up. And then the building principal's not available because they have other things that they should be doing. And I don't want anyone to get offended at the fact that you showed up, the principal was off doing whatever he or she normally would have to do. So we're good.
Can I have a comment, a statement on that?
Yes.
It's been my experience, my short time on the board, that in order to see that your district goals, and your board goals are being met, I know somewhere in one of them goals it's about the culture of our students in the building that they're in. So in order to make an accurate evaluation on the culture of the environment in the classroom, I would think that you must visit it to really see it for yourself of the culture and the environment. Plus, it makes the staff feel as though we're all in it together. Just a comment.
Okay, any additional feedback?
Yeah.
One more. I just wanted to say that, being a board member for a long time, I thought we always had visit the schools. And it's just that we never came back and reported, only unless we see, like you might say, this happened there at school and they did a terrific job or a play or something like that. But we always had to go out and visit. And you bring back, what you wanted to say. Sometimes you did, sometimes you didn't. But I just wanted to say that's always been into play about how we visit the schools, and you always had to let them know you were coming before you could come. I'm just saying that that's always been in play. It's always been there, set for the board to do.
So perhaps we can craft a little information so that we have some guidance where we're going with that. Would that be feasible? Okay. And then depending on the culture, which you just stated, Mr. Thomas, each school has their own unique culture. So then we'll have to understand that all schools need not be doing 1 or 2 or 3 things, that one may be doing something more enlightening in terms of their academics. So we will talk about the culture at a different time. Any additional, I think we covered everything on page 2.
I think I want to suggest that we read all of the comments for each section and then discuss them, because I think other than that, it's going to take way too long to get through it. Because some of them are, duplicates or, contain the same information. So I think that might be more helpful.
Okay, Ms. Nevins.
As board members, in conjunction with the superintendent annually, we have met to examine, refocus, and redefine the needs of our district. It is critical to our district's success to develop cutting-edge strategies continuously that are impactful in moving us forward.
Any additional comments on that one?
I thought we were gonna do more.
I thought we were going one by one and then,
I can keep just reading it if you want.
okay, then we,
As board member, it is important to communicate with all members and work towards the same goal. We do not reach out to the community for input. We also need to monitor our progress more than once a year. The Winslow Township School Board encourages and welcomes the input of the community in order to carry out the mission of the district. We meet annually to set district goals, and we also set goals in our committee meetings, reviewing the action plans to stay on task. We consistently discuss steps to achieve greater progress for the district as education strategies and current events are ever changing. I fully support the district vision, mission, and goals, and participate in district planning, contributing to our district goals for the 2022-2023 school year. The community and public are our most important stakeholders, and I believe that with their support, we'll catapult the district to more and more successes every school year. Everything is very important in order to run the board duties to its potential, and as an experienced board member, I strive to be open to learning new requirements for achieving student progress and proficiency. And that was all the comments for that section.
any feedback on those comments?
I think the only thing that I wanted to note is the discrepancy between some of the comments. Some seemed to suggest that, everything was going swimmingly and some suggested areas of improvement. So just a discrepancy in the mindset of the board as it sat at that time.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Yes, the one that really stands out for me is where it says, we do not reach out to the community for input. We also need to monitor our progress more than once a year.
So are you suggesting, or is the board in agreement to monitoring our progress at least twice a year?
Yes.
So this we do the self-evaluation, and usually you have to finish it in December. So it's now May, so perhaps in September or October, we should come back again and look at it? Is that what you're suggesting? You said it sounds good, Mrs. Moore?
Yes, yes,
So we do it in May and again in October. Is that okay?
yes.
Thank you. Anyone else with suggestions? How about the one with community? We do not go out to the community.
Well, hopefully we're remedying that with the board chat in July. And if that goes well, my intent is to attempt to do that quarterly.
Okay. So perhaps the board would do, based on the feedback from the chatting, what do you call them, chatting Jim? Or is it
That's
chat?
subject.
Chat.
Chat with a board member. We haven't really branded it yet.
Oh,
I'm trying to find something catchy.
board member.
I have a comment to that.
Okay.
I just think even before we get to that, we're missing a lot of opportunities before we even get to July to discuss, because once we discuss, then it's gonna take a formation. It's just some things I just feel that we should increase our involvement within the community and within school district events.
Do you have suggestions?
Yeah, you got the township meeting that's going on. You got other events on that calendar that's going on that we should be a president of. It would be good for the community to see us out on these events. I'm sure they got something coming up for the next holidays that are going on. Not just the special events, but the smaller events where it's an intimate crowd and they're talking about different things that really concern us. The planning board is one that we could be at to make sure that when they do make these plans and they're doing these developments, that we have some accurate representation there to bring back to the board so we can make a better decision on what's happening in our district.
Well, Mr. Thomas, I believe we do have, aren't two of us assigned to township committees already?
Yes.
I mean, I don't hear no reports, I don't hear anything. I'm just saying, if that's what we have, fine. I mean, I'm just going by what I to this point. Even from last year, I haven't seen any reports on them type of events. So if that's what we got, I'm welcome to hear it.
I can tell you for myself, I'm on the Drug and Alcohol Alliance, and there is absolutely nothing to report.
Okay. I mean, you can report and always say there's nothing to
Yeah,
report.
okay,
But until that's the first time I didn't even know you was on a drug and alliance or anything. So I'm just saying that these are opportunities for us to be a part of the community And my goal is to enhance. So, just a comment.
Those appointments to committees, usually the township will request that. And then in our reorganization, the president will seek those individuals that are interested in those committees.
Madam Vice President, I'm not talking about a formal position. I'm just talking about a community concern that you show up in the crowd, like people show up in the crowd to come to our board meetings. We show up in the crowd to come to other people's board meetings, just to be a concerned citizen or a concerned community. We don't always have to have a title or a formal position to be a part of the community.
I agree. So that's what you're saying too. The committee reports is one, those that are on those committees, and then greater involvement in community activities.
Correct.
Those two. Okay, I had that.
But I just want to say, I'm on the planning committee, but I just, was my first time, my first meeting. And so I really had to see how the meeting ran, what was being said, what's going on, and what I can talk about and what I can't talk about. So therefore, I do plan to bring it to the president, so I can go over with her to see what we can talk, that I can speak on from that. But in the meantime, by going to my first meeting, it was nothing to come back yet to report.
Okay, are we ready to move to page 4 and 5?
Yeah.
Ms. Esposito, do you want to read those? And then I'll, yours.
Board policies are regularly updated and are the basis for decision-making in the district. I am familiar with board policies and know that they are available for my review, but also know that they are implemented by administration. As board members, making sure that policy is always implemented and allowing administration to follow through. Board members are abreast of policies and their intent at least monthly for review and revision as mandated. Although I'm not familiar with every board policy, I try to educate myself before making a decision. As an experienced board member, I've learned the importance of aligning all decisions and actions with state and district policies and procedures. I believe there is a lack of cohesiveness with the district policy being implemented across all of our schools. Perhaps too much latitude is given towards administrators at the building level, which makes it hard to keep to a one district approach, with policies being interpreted differently at different schools. I admit I struggle with involvement in day-to-day operations and avoid becoming involved, as I hear so much feedback from parents and being a parent myself in the district. Everything is done with policies working together, making sure the board is running smoothly as it should be. Our board does a great job keeping our policy, both current and new policies, targeted to the success of our students.
Any comments? Okay. Any feedback for improvement? Are we okay with that one? Moving to the next page, page 6 and 7. Mr. Thomas, you want to read those comments?
Right, sure.
All right, thank you.
6 and 7. Starting on page 6 is redacted, so I'll go to the next bullet point. The board and district have been instrumental in accessing our educational process, which reflects adherence to NJQSAC and educational policies. We should find a way to include more input from community about educational aspirations. As board member, I am concerned about our student achievement, using all tools available to ensure successful curriculum development, student achievement, and educational decisions is what continues to help our students graduate more and more prestigiously. As a board member, my focus for our district has always been to increase our graduation rates and achieve proficiency across the entire district, all in a moderate and in compliance. Student achievement is the overall goal of our district, and the community's educational aspirations are fundamental in determining educational goals.
Thank you. Any comments on that area?
I just would like to note that as a board, the one comment as a board member, I'm concerned about our student achievement, kind of stuck out to me. And I would like to see our goals align more with, student outcomes.
Are you saying student learning outcomes?
Yes.
Anyone else? No further comments in this section. Then going to page 8 and 9. Mrs. Martin, will you read those?
Yes. The district and board have demonstrated a thorough understanding of finances through NJSBA training, monthly community reports, and audit reports. As a board member, be reminded that our costs are skyrocketing and we need to seriously consider what things can be done to stay afloat and not educational needs in the process. As a board member, I am continually focused on the budget and fiscal health of our district. I can say for myself, I do not understand some of the budget and financial reports, would appreciate more explanation. And that's it.
Okay, any comments on that?
Yeah.
Any suggestions? Just a comment, being a experienced board member for a few years, I applaud the district that we are still in the black. When you see other school districts, but we're in the black, and I want to thank our leadership for focusing on that. And I often say that for those that attended Edgewood, now Winslow, you could just look at the buildings and see the quality of the buildings and to look at the technology. And I can say when I came, technology was big on my list. It would have been big on yours. Our infrastructure actually crashed. We had antiquated computers, and none of that exists now. So I want to thank the administration for that. Budget is important because that's how we stay afloat.
And I just want to make one comment. I know there was one comment about not understanding budgets and finances. And I know, having done governance too, which is related to finance through the NJSBA training, I kind of find that training lacking myself. And there was a lot that they kind of glossed over, went through really quickly. I'm not a numbers person, so I need extra explanation. And I think we squeezed probably several topics that could have been days-long conferences, really, so. That was just my input on that.
So are you suggesting maybe we can have a little brief,
Or maybe have Terry come down and do another training as well. I mean, I know I would find it, so.
okay, so you want to take the training on finances? Now I'm gonna differ with that. I like the budget people to give the finance report. I am a budget I'm a numbers person. So I always look up and say, okay, you see me count. My question is, I haven't been to, and you can correct me, I have not been to a workshop that the school board has put on or performed that would meet my standards of knowing the budget inside out. I think what Mr. Thomas did was that a month ago and met with our VA, that helped us helped him to understand better the budget. And when you look at that, then you see the difference. So I'm not putting you on the spot.
That's correct,
I'm
Madam
not putting
Vice
you,
President.
thank you. I'm not putting you on the
Stay on the
spot.
spot.
I'm looking at our VA, I'm not putting my arm on the spot. And her assistant, I'm not putting them on the spot, am I?
No.
I thank you. Maybe they will be helpful, because once you see it, then you're gonna see the lineup.
But then Ms. Boyle might throw me out.
No, she won't. No, she won't.
There's that money.
So is that something feasible within the summertime we can look at, and you can help those? Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. And any addition, and let me write that down.
I'm pretty sure that one of those comments that was evaluative in nature stated that Ms. Boyle and her team do an excellent job. Thank you.
Yes, it does. So the next page 11. Mrs. Moore, thank you so much.
Okay, this section is on board operations. Comments. I feel as the Roberts Rules does an effective job at maintaining order and giving a process to follow. I believe the board could be more informed before making decisions by those with the necessary information. I understand that it is my right to ask questions prior to the board meeting, but I feel as if I have questions, members of the public will as well, and information should be given in public as much as possible in order to be as transparent as can be. I can admit that when introducing new ideas to the board, I have not followed the agenda process and will strive to do so in the future. Board meetings are held in compliance, and board members are encouraged to utilize trainings that are made available, introduce new issues, and work as a team, though we have several specific committees. The district and board have made every effort to work harmoniously for the good of the school community. The workshops and governance class are very informative to being a board member. I have no further comments at this juncture. I'm sorry. We definitely need to work on being more collaborative. This is the one area I think our board could strengthen. Teamwork and collaboration with each other are two traits we need to work on. As a board member, we are not working as complete because of attitudes toward one another. Okay.
Any comments on those?
I'd just like to say that I think that Mrs. Fitz will probably have a comment as well. And part of the training that we took today, or the conference, they actually talked about this very topic, and I think it would be helpful for our board to do, and not just, this is on any board, to do more team building and those types of activities to help us to coalesce, as a group.
And if I could, good evening, everyone. Good evening. Mrs. Esposito is absolutely correct. The conference, the leadership conference that we both attended today in Atlantic City, actually took time out to make that a very critical part of the day's conference. So what it said to me was that that's very extremely important that we work collaboratively as a team and collectively. And it also said that to me that because NJSBA spotlighted that also seems to be a challenge for other boards throughout the state. And so I would think that, and I'm hoping board members that at our retreat in August, that is also something that we will focus on
Any additional comments in this area? Thank you. Page 12 and 13. Back to Ms. Esposito.
Again, so this section is on board performance. Again, I recognize I struggle with knowing things as a parent and will continue to try to redirect when necessary. No comments at this point. I take my duties as a board member very seriously and make every effort to attend all meetings and be prepared. Our board president and attorney stress the importance of attendance, preparation, and confidentiality regarding executive decisions and items that require our votes, etc. As with all boards, every decision is not agreed upon, but we all respect and value our differences. Personally, I make sure I try to go more than the mandatory ethics class, so I can make sure I not only proceed through a meeting without any issues. It's rules and regulations. That way, they always have to be followed. And no comment.
Any additional feedback for this area?
I think that the comments were very helpful, and in this particular area, I would also encourage board members to take a look at our board bylaws and refamiliarize ourselves with them. I think that would be helpful in this area.
Any other comments? Madam President, if you can do page 15.
Board superintendent, this particular area deals with board.
We're recording, so if you can use your microphone, I appreciate it.
This particular area of board self-evaluation deals with board superintendent relations and how members feel about our board and how they feel individually. And the comments are thus. Many of these I have not been on the board long enough to have observed. I can say that as of this evaluation, I have not seen regular dialogue on the progress towards district goals and corrective measures. Ensuring the chain of command stays intact is of utmost importance. Everyone needs to understand that the board only has one employee, the superintendent, and the superintendent runs the district, hence the reason for the chain of command. As you'll see, most of this, number 3, has been redacted. The comment deleted, evaluative in nature. Next, as the board can and often does experience a new set of board members each year, it creates a challenging aspect to the management and accountability of the superintendent. Next, communication with the superintendent is accessible and attainable. I believe I am able to conduct a knowledgeable evaluation of our superintendent based on the accomplishment of the district goals. Next comment, the evaluation of the superintendent needs to be started earlier. Next comment, the district and board have developed annual goals with a 6-month assessment before the superintendent's annual evaluation. And final comment, I know my different steps of how we are to work with our superintendent, and I feel I do all what is asked and necessary of me.
Any additional feedback or comments for this section?
I would just say that this is middle of May, but of course, next month is June, and we do have to have the superintendent's evaluation completed by June. I would hope that, I would encourage us as a board to work towards starting up the process of the board of the superintendent
evaluation earlier, so that as we're coming into June, we don't feel as if we're just kind of sliding into home base.
Well, as you're aware, we did get the 2022-2023 district goals update, the superintendent goals, in February. So we still have to go over that, and that was February 22nd, 2023, but we've been extremely busy. No fault, but we need to align ourselves when we said that we're gonna do something, that we're gonna do it, or we're gonna have to have a special meeting. Any additional comments in that area? Mrs. Dredden, page 16 and 16 and 17. 16. 16 and 17.
First comment is, all are in compliance. One of the highlights of the board meeting and school functions and the recognition given to staff and students' accomplishments. It brings about a sense of pride to our district. Although due to work obligations, I'm not able to attend all school functions. I make a conscious effort to attend as often as possible. I recognize that the chain of command is imperative in resolving any issues immediately and effectively, and follow it undoubtedly. Number 2 comment, I think it is important to attend school and community activities. 3, the district and board have maintained different strategies to access school climate, parental involvement, and staff recognition. 4, again, here I feel that there is an issue with board policies being communicated to staff in such a way that all schools should be similar run. Our district does a wonderful job to recognize teachers who go above and beyond. But I feel we could do more to recognize staff on a regular level. I constantly strive to be an effective communicator to communities and staff. I freely communicate about district issues, events with our superintendent. Also frequently recognize students, facilities and administrators and staff at our board meetings. The last comment, no comment.
Any additional input or feedback on that area, this area?
I did, I'm sorry. I just was going over them again. So one of them that got my attention was the district and board have maintained different strategies to assess school climate, parental involvement, and staff recognition. I'm really hoping that we can do a better job with that. I know we've talked about doing potentially doing a school climate survey to see where we can do better in this area. So I'm hoping we'll do better with that.
I'm just jotting it down. Any additional comments?
I would agree with Mrs. Moore, because I know that the CAC has been making that recommendation with regards to a culture climate survey. And certainly, I feel certain that going forward, we can make that happen sooner than later.
Thank you. So that's going to be on our agenda.
Yes.
Any additional comments? Mr. Neves? And thank you for reading Constance, so thank you.
No problem.
So the next section is dealing with board and the community. Making parental involvement as a part of my decision-making, it helps my decisions more educated towards what I feel will push our district towards stronger gains of student achievement and equity. I am a proud member of the Winslow Township School Board and a proud parent of the district. My decision to pursue being a board member of the district is my connection to the community and knowing that a child's education and well-being while in school is invaluable. We will not have exemplary students and staff without having an exemplary community whose involvement inspires student achievement. Ongoing community involvement is a key factor. I am constantly striving to improve and increase community parental involvement throughout the district. Everything we do as board members, it's all about our children and what we can and must do to promote education, safe environment, curriculum, and being there for them to make a difference in their lives. As a parent in the district, I can say that I do not feel engaged with the school district and have had numerous complaints from community members expressing the same. We have seen participation in our HSAs dwindle over the years. Students continue to choice out to other districts, and parents have not been engaged in order to address the widespread learning loss due to COVID. We do have a CAC and CPAC. There are few engagements with our community other than township officials that I am aware of. It has been my experience that parents who have differing views are perceived as disgruntled and that there is little need to perform further outreach. As a board member, I have brought forth ideas to improve community engagement in multiple ways, including improving our technology as a means to reach a broader audience. All board members have demonstrated the ability to develop and maintain positive partnership relationships with the district and community. We must do a better job of providing opportunities for meaningful parental involvement and effective community relations. And that is the end of the comments for that section.
Any additional comments or input? Or strategies?
I would just say that I think the overarching goal, and hopefully that's something we've been talking about throughout this year as we've gone through, is parental and family engagement. And I think with the chat with the board member, and hopefully when we sit down to do our district goals at this retreat, that becomes a primary focus.
Any additional comments?
Yes, I also think events like the one we're having tonight help with board and community relationships.
Thank you. Any additional? And our last section deals with identify challenges facing our district. Do you want to go over that? Ms. Pitts, will you read those?
Sure. Again, identifying the challenges.
Bring you up.
Identifying the challenges, and also getting used to this mic. Identifying the challenges facing our district. The heading for this section reads, recognizing that our board's highest priority is to improve student achievement. What are three major challenges currently facing our district? And this section is actually the last section of the board self-evaluation. And what it does is to place questions to the board members in answering. And that was the first question. And this was the first response. Three challenges we are currently facing are, number one, getting our students back to the level of educational success they were at before the pandemic. Number two, creating a new equitable dress code policy, since we will no longer have a uniform policy. Number three, updating and renovations on all of our district schools, the HVAC system. That was the first comment bullet. Second comment bullet, answering this question, challenges facing our district. Number one, community engagement. Number two, correcting behavioral issues within the student population. Number three, improving technology. Third bullet comment, challenges facing our district, shortages with staff, aides, and bus drivers. Learning gap that we are faced with our students, increased costs of transportation. Next bullet, teachers, bus drivers, finances. Next comment bullet, parent involvement, number 1, 2, learning loss, again, due to pandemic. Number 3, behavior challenges. Next bullet comment, number 1, we must find ways to limit distractions to learning. Number 2, parents need to work with the schools. Number 3, students should be assessed in a way that leads to real improvement, not just test scores. Next bullet, just one sentence, continue to develop effective and efficient strategies to move forward the district's goals, mission, and objectives. And the last bullet in this section, 3 major challenges currently facing our district are, number 1, teacher shortage. Number 2, shortage of funding for increasing employee salaries. And number 3, parental apathy. Moving on now to the next question. The next question reads, in maintaining our appropriate role as a policy-making body through effective oversight, what specific areas of board governance require additional focus and training? First comment bullet, we need to focus and train on technology and public relations. Second bullet, number 1, having access to more information or training to make more informed decisions. Number 2, more frequent updates on student achievement and district goals. Number 3, having our district goals follow the SMART method, which is an acronym where they are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. Next bullet, learning to work as a team, realizing it is important for us to pivot into new direction to help survive and revive. Next bullet, answering this question. Number 1, adequate staff. Number 2, informational technology. Number 3, reputation. Moving down to the next bullet comment, policy, how and why specific policies are made. Next bullet, we need to focus on making our policies as unambiguous as possible to ensure all parties, that is, all parties, administration, teachers, staff, students, and parents, clearly understand the details. And the next bullet, closer work in the area of policies for newer board members. And the final comment, areas of board governance that require additional focus and training in our district would be encouraging greater dialogue with all stakeholders within the district and the community.
Is there any additional comments, strategies, or input? Okay, seeing none, I want to thank all the board for participating in this. I have jotted some notes down. I will send them out to you, and then you can just make what corrections that I may have missed. I know our VA has recorded it, so if I need to lean on her records, I can do so. So thank you. If there's anything that we have forgotten tonight, just email.
I have a question.
Yes.
So, being on the board member, so this was, when did we actually fill this out?
You filled it out, I think it was December it was due.
It's due by December, but I believe we did it in November.
We did it in November for the school year.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay, so-
well, actually, it's for the school year, yeah.
So we won't be filling that.
Yes,
Yeah,
you
you
will,
will. This is-
November.
We do it every
November,
year.
But not,
Yeah.
not before the end of the year.
Yeah,
Oh, no.
okay. I entertain a motion to close this board meeting designed to discuss the board's self-evaluation. Is there a motion?
Motion to conclude the board evaluation.
Is there a second?
Right, second.
It's been properly moved by Mrs. Martin and seconded by Mrs. Dredden that we close this session out. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion has carried. Thank you so much.
Madam President. Madam President, in consultation with our business administrator, in order to start our second meeting, we do not have to go through all of the steps that we would normally do. It is recommended that we at least start with public notice and do the roll call, and then we can go right into our town hall meeting.
Thank you, Dr. Poteet. Public notice of this meeting was given to all board members and associates in notices dated April 6, 2023. Adequate and electronic notice of this public meeting has been provided specifying the time, place, and manner in which this meeting is being conducted. It was advertised in the Courier Post, posted in all schools, the administration office, the municipal building, the library, the Bud Jubal Center, Edgewood Acres, Elmtown, and the Winslow Township post offices. At this time, I'm asking for a roll call, but since that was done at the previous meeting, and since clearly we can see that we are all present, I'm going to move, and I believe, did we do the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes.
All right, and so
We do need a roll call.
we do need a roll call? Okay, I'm sorry, so let's return to that roll call.
Ms.
Right.
Dredden? Ms. Dredden?
Here.
Ms. Esposito?
Here.
Ms. Martin? Present. Ms. Moore?
Present.
Ms. Nieves?
Present.
Mr. Thomas?
Here.
Ms. Thomas? Ms. Peterson?
Present.
And Ms. Pitts?
Present.
All right, we have a quorum.
Thank you. I do believe earlier that we did the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yes, we did.
All right. And with regards to the district goals,
They did those all.
thank you, very good. So now moving to the second page. At this point, we are prepared to go into our town hall meeting. And this is what we're going to bring into, but this is what will bring us into our town hall meeting. Public forum for open conversation. Township of Winslow residents, parents, guardians, caregivers, school district staff, and current and former students are invited to join the Board of Education for a conversation on mental health and student behaviors and how parents can address these issues at home. And Dr. Poteet, I'm going to turn it over to you at this time.
Yes, Madam President, ladies, gentlemen of the board and community, as you know, we had a presenter at our last town hall meeting. Dr. Ieva, was our presenter. And as a result of those individuals who attended that meeting, they felt that the information that they received was very important and vital. And they asked if we would invite her back because they felt there was more for them to get from her presentation. So we've asked by popular demand for Dr. Ieva to return to the Winslow Township School District, but we also are asking her not only to share with us on mental health, we're also asking her to speak to us on how mental health may affect student behavior. We're going to give Dr. Ieva an opportunity to set up, so we'll wait and give her at least 5 minutes to get set up, whatever time she needs, and at that time, we'll present Dr. Ieva to the community. Board members, you may take a seat in the audience. Thank you.
Okay. Hello, everyone. You bet, huh? Literally and figuratively. I'm excited to be here with you tonight. How's everyone doing? Yeah. So just in a show of hands, and for as I go through this, how many people were here at the last town hall meeting? Excellent. Oh, good to know, good to know. Only because I'll speed through a review really quickly is really what that was about. But for those of you who don't know me, my name is Karaiba. First and foremost, I am an imperfect parent. I say that to say of 23 years of formal training in education, mental health, and neuroscience, I am nowhere near the parent I thought I would be at this point in time. And everything I learned after the fact of having kids. And so I say that to say I'm sharing knowledge with you, but I also empathize with everyone simultaneously because I am also that parent. As you can see, I've talked about this previously, but this is my family. My wife is an inclusion middle school science teacher, and my two children are 10 and 8, both diagnosed neurodiverse, one ADHD, one autistic, both diagnosed with general anxiety disorder. So I live this on a daily basis, and all of the information and education I have was helpful for me as well. So I am trying to translate this into practice, how it could work for you. Among other things, I do lots of other things, but that is where it all intersects. Just a reminder that we're all here and this is a safe space. There is no judgment, that we're all doing the best that we can. And asking for support at times also means that we're kind of being brave. And I will admit, today was the day I wanted to raise a red flag. And I will share with you that, you know, our DECA police officer, they were having the funeral today. And so it was taking place at Rowan. I happen to also live in Glassboro. And so we found out last night that our children are going to go to school virtually today. And so that was like having almost PTSD in a way of like, what? And I really did. I received the frustration of virtual school all over again. So I say this to say it goes in and out, it's ongoing. And I needed help today is really what that comes down to. So if you are willing and you are able to stand, I'm going to ask you to do so. If you don't want to, you can totally do this in your seat. But if you're willing and able, I'm going to have you stand. It's different, right? We're in education, we have to model. So on the count of 3, I'm going to ask you to clap 3 times. Are you ready? Does everybody understand that direction? Yes. All right. 1, 2, 3. All right. Now on this count of 3, I'm going to ask you to clap 3 times and stomp once. Are you ready? Everybody understood that direction? Okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Next one, I can tell some of you were steppers, it's fine. It's very classic cut. On this time on the count of 3, I'm gonna have you clap 3 times, stomp twice, clap twice. 3, 2, 2. I'll give you that numeric. Ready? Clap, stomp, clap. 3, 2, 2. Right? Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. Now that's impressive. Okay, here's the last one. Ready? On the count of 3, same amount of beats. It's gonna be freestyle. Ready? Your creative license. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Have a seat. Now think about that. 2 minutes, right? Not even 2 minutes. But realistically, we use these words in parenting called co-regulation. We use it in education and we use it at home. And the reality is this: a dysregulated adult, doesn't matter if it's home or at school, cannot assist in regulating a child. And so we spent a lot of time last time talking about really the brain, how it's wired, why you're seeing an increase in mental health. And it's only going to surge. I hate to share this statistic, but in the last 6 months, we have gone to ages 13 to 17, 1 in 3 with clinical depression. And that diagnosis means they had access to medical care, but it also means, right, that we are increasing at higher rates than we've ever seen before. And so schools don't know what to do, Parents don't know what to do, and the reality is it takes a village. So a lot of what I'm sharing with you today is also foundational to what has to happen. And I will admit, teachers are getting professional development, but they are also parents. They are also humans, just like us. And we can only do so much. Today, I had a crisis in the family for mental health, who ultimately had to go to the hospital, right? So it's not a matter of knowing this is coming. It's a matter of normalizing at this point that we're seeing an increase, and how do we support everybody? And more importantly, how do we as a parents and a community as a school work together to support students? And part of that, right, is regulating. All of a sudden, you were in a better mood. You laughed, right? You had to follow along. Your brain had to follow along with a step and a physical movement. And believe it or not, that alone automatically changes your brain structure in that moment, as simple as that activity was. So I'm just going to center everyone's voices here. I can talk all day, but we all can talk too. So I'm going to ask you this. And looking at this battery, where are you, right? Are you feeling great? You should after the co-regulation, but maybe not for the rest of the day. Feeling okay? Are we struggling? Are we on empty? Are we meh? Or we're feeling good, right? And I want to be clear, we got many batteries happening at the same time. We have professional batteries, we have personal batteries, and sometimes they're so out of whack, right? It also affects us. Well, the same thing also happens for kids. But it's not often that we say to adults, and parents included, or teachers for that matter, or superintendents or administrators, or school boards, how you doing? So the answer is, where are you here? Where are you here? I'm in the math category because of what happened for me today. Got to work on virtual school. With younger kids. Anyone else? You know in your head, you don't have to share it, okay? But you know where you are. And I imagine that some of you are towards the bottom. Also, it's the end of the day, so it's also the wrong time to ask you that question, right? Okay, moving on. So just a reminder from last time, there are so many ways to check in, but first and foremost, by making it a priority on a daily basis to check in and to be creative on how you do that with your child. Just that 2-second conversation alone can be the difference of noticing something wrong with our children versus not. And so this is just a reminder for that. So we're going to do a very quick review in 1 minute. We're going to talk about us and our own expectations as parents. And then we're going to talk about strategies for preventing and intervening with what we're going to call self-management skills at home, what some of you will call behaviors, right? But we all know behaviors is just communication for something else. This is also a reminder. In the same way, we have no idea what it's like to be a kid today. And here's what I'm hearing over and over from counselors in schools. We have 18-year-olds who are graduating high school right now. We are asking them to make life decisions, and they are operating like they are 14 years old. And so they're completely shutting down, they're overwhelmed, and they don't know how to move forward. And just like we keep moving them forward, right? And so we're seeing this increase also because I just want to recognize it doesn't matter if we had kids prior to COVID in schools. It doesn't matter if our kids are successful adults. It doesn't change the fact that right now in this moment in time is extremely different, and we can't even talk about pre-COVID anymore. We have to talk about what's happening right now. But the same is true for you. We don't know what it's like to be a parent. So I want to acknowledge parents right now that we don't know what it's like because we've never been in this scenario, and any generation prior to us has not been in this exact same scenario. Remember, they're going to be talking about us for the next 100 years about what we did and did not do in a post-COVID world in education and at home to address these things. We talked about how emotional health, physical health, and mental health are really connected to the brain and ultimately the tasks that we call executive functioning. So for those of you who weren't here last time, we spent a lot of time on this because this is what the brain keeps us from doing. And it is what you see as a parent, and it's what school teachers are talking about. Impulse control, emotional control, flexible thinking, being able to shift gears very quickly in transition, working memory, being able to monitor themselves, be able to plan and prioritize, and initiate doing something. If I were to take a guess on what you're seeing as far as behaviors are concerned, when people use the word behavior, my guess is it's falling under here and under this umbrella. And so this is why schools started talking about social emotional learning. It's not new. We've been doing it. We just have not been explicit about it. And then we just said, hey, parents, here's language we're using. How about you try it for a moment? And I also talked about this last time too, to end this review, that what is hard for us right now is how everyone is internalizing. When we went into isolation in COVID, right? Some people's families were nurses, doctors, cops, right? Their life just went on as normal and school was at home. But for a good portion, it wasn't the case, and they were very secluded and very isolated. And we are really worried about what that has done for students to internalize. I said this last time I was here, I'm gonna repeat it again because it's the most important thing I can ever say to you. If your child is displaying anxiety, and if we don't address it earlier on, it crystallizes in the brain to keep that negative self-talk, right? And that internalization that happens. And so as parents and teachers, we're very upset about these expressive outcomes. And I'm very okay with expressive outcomes because it says to me we need support. We don't have all the answers all the time, but we know we need support. This is what's happening to the majority of our students. And when that happens, anxiety crystallizes in the brain and faulty thinking with no one checking it at the door. And then they just believe whatever they believe to be true. So we could talk about people being stubborn or not seeing another person's point of view. Their brain gets crystallized on this path. So they need, just like we do as adults, opportunities to regulate their hearts, their minds, and their bodies. So just to be clear, that was a review from last time. So now we're going to talk about you as adults. So when we have this conversation about how do we address behaviors at home, right? There's a gamut of how old everyone's students are. So I went and said, okay, what can we do that we can universally use for all students right now? And I want to talk about it being a really hard reset in a mindset for you as an adult, right? We're going to forget about the student for just a moment, right? This is going to be about us. We know you are the first teachers. We also know that you're not trained in child development or trained in parenting or even trained in an aspect of education. But here is the time where being a parent has never been more important than it previously was before. You know all the statistics about how they used to tell us about reading levels increased, literacy with parent involvement. It was true, right? But what they don't talk about is all the things that came as a result of that. Building relationships, right? Feeling safe in that space. All these interpersonal things that came as a result. So we focused on the outcome that, hey, parental involvement leads to greater grades. But we never talked about what the relationship between parents and kids were like in order to get there. So we're going to talk about an emotional safety plan. Y'all know in the district, you have to have a physical safety plan, don't you? Right? We have plans upon plans for active shooters, hurricanes, right? Some of you even have in your home. I remember the old commercials of the fire police chiefs having the ladders, make sure they were available, right? Everyone needed to have a physical safety plan in your house, right? So I'll ask you, anybody got an emotional safety plan in your house? No. You do, because we're going to talk about it. You just don't know you have it. And it's the same thing. It's not as an explicit to everyone. So I'm going to not share my word. I'll call it juice for right now. But we have I have a word, a safe word in my family. I mean this in all sincerity, where if they are home and something is happening, they know how to use it in the sentence like, hey, can you buy us some juice? Or if I say we're going across the street to get some juice, they all know to follow. There's no questions. You don't ask. It is a safety moment at that moment in time, right? So that's as far as I've had. When we get to this, it's a little more different about how you handle emotions, right? I've shared with this before, but there is a difference in all of us, right? That our thoughts create these feelings and behaviors, right? And then they reinforce it and we become reactive. We're all reactive. As a parent, I'm reactive. I need to get to work on time. You need to come, right? This is what we do. We yell, we scream, we get into power struggles because we have an expectation of where we need to be and you're going to come along for the ride with us, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know it all happens every morning. It happens for me too. Remember, imperfect parent. However, that 90 seconds makes a difference. And I say that to say, This is why we're building an emotional safety plan. So we know that since you're the first teachers, that you model communication patterns, how you address people, right? Kids are watching, even when you don't think they're watching and they're playing on the iPad and they're not paying attention to you, they are watching, right? They will act the exact same way you do, or a partner, or an older sibling in the house, right? When they're stressed. And so having a plan ready and rehearsed for you makes it an automatic response when these moments are happening in your class. Okay, so the first one is addressing what you're gonna say. Mine is, Mommy needs 5 minutes. Where do you go in that 5 minutes? You all have a safe, emotional safety plan that you use, you just don't vocalize it. What do you do? Where do you go? What do you say? None of you go to the bathroom and hide? Yeah, right? First place I'm going is to the bathroom. Why? It's like the one place we've all agreed on that you're not coming in from a boundary perspective. The next is, well, this is it. Where will you go? In this particular example, it's the favorite chair in the bedroom. But think about this. I am so angry at something else. If I speak to my child right now, we're going to get in a power struggle, and it really is going to be about me and not necessarily about them. So how do we address our own emotions, right? So that's what we're talking about with an emotional safety plan. Mommy needs 5 minutes, or in my case, it doesn't even have to say it anymore. I just go, okay, Mommy, I'll be right back, right? And here's the thing that I'm normalizing. I'm not doing well. It's not about you. I'm going to go address myself, and then I'm going to come back, and I'm going to have a conversation with you. But that's not how we work. I can go 0 to 60 real quick. So people know how to push buttons, and I know how, it doesn't matter that that I know how to do this. When you get there, thinking about what you're gonna do. So some people don't wanna think about what just happened, right? They want to go to an island in their mind, or listen to music, or dance, or whatever it is that you do to manage your stress. And it could be whatever you want. I'm not gonna lie, I have also have a medical card, and cannabis is a part of my routine. And I'm putting it out there for sleep, but it is a part of my wellness routine, as much as the monthly massage. And last but not least, what are you gonna do when you return, right? Because the reality is, part of what might have made you upset is your child, right? But you don't want to put the fact that the child made you upset also back on them, because now we're just going to spin wheels and we're going to create an ugly relationship and end up in the same pattern over and over. So we also need to be thinking about in our emotional safety plan what we might say when we get there. And that's not an easy statement, right? When you see red, think about this. You've seen kids see red, you've seen adults see red. There is no rationalization happening, right? So what comes out of your mouth is not actually going to be nice no matter what happens, right? But we do need to think about what we might say when we come back. And for me, I do say this, all right, I'm in a calmer space. Now, can we address something that just happened 5 minutes ago? Because what we've come to rely on is everything having to happen in the moment, right? And I just mean this across, from fast food to Amazon. And hey, if you are in our area, and I don't know if any of you travel outside of our area, but in the summer we're not here, it is not the same for Amazon. Here, we get things delivered the same day. It's very weird. We got all of these warehouses, right? But when I gotta wait 3 more days when we're in South Carolina, it's not the same. But we've come into this accustomed of wanting instant gratification. It's not just our kids. We are doing this as adults either. Anything to make our lives easier, right? And you know, when we do that, now we're adding to the layer of all these choices we have to make and decisions. I use the STOP method, and I teach the STOP method to my kids. And the only reason I teach this to my kids is because impulse control is huge. I have a child who will say screw you to the teacher. Did last week, that was part of the fun for me, right? And so what do we do to stop that impulse from happening all times? So I teach the STOP method, and we actually just show a stop sign, right? It's to stop, take a breath, observe, and then proceed. And all I'm trying to do for you as parents and for us as kids is to wait the 90 seconds. It is literally the difference between me cursing you out, right? and me thinking very clearly about what I want to say to you that does not necessarily cause harm. And what we're trying to do, both from a kid perspective and from a parent perspective, is stop the power struggle and that circle of harm. And the first thing that we can do is create an emotional safety plan and discuss it with our children. Because simultaneously, we're normalizing and modeling. We're gonna have feelings. It's okay to have those feelings. It's what we do with those feelings before we engage in communication, right? And so having an emotional safety plan is kind of the first step to addressing it at home. And I would say that this isn't I don't care. It's more like you can start this at any point in time. Your kids can be teenagers right now. They can be college-age students, or they can be infants and they can be toddlers. There is never a wrong time to start discussing this as a family, especially if you have high school students, right? They might go away to college and they're gonna need what we are gonna call their own emotional safety plan. And sometimes part of that emotional safety plan for them is calling a friend, right? Sorry. I also, at the beginning and end, have the QR code to both last time's presentation and this presentation, so you can have them as well. Collaborative for academic and social emotional learning. These are 10 steps for us to do as a parent. What I'm going to talk about right now are these 5 things, right? Once we have an emotional safety plan, we move into these aspects of development. Now I'm going to go back and say this again to you. It doesn't matter if your kid's a toddler, teenager, or a young adult in college. All of what I'm sharing right now crosses the board. It is very instrumental in the early years, but it's never too late to start. So we're going to start with this list, which is choices, routines, specific praise, validating feelings and emotions, and teaching coping skills for when there is a behavior present. Let's talk choices. You know you make 45,000 decisions a day. Teachers are estimated 10,000 more. I shared this last time I was here. We used to have only certain TV channels, then we got cable, but it was still structured, and now we're in a streaming land. Now y'all have to figure out what you want to pay for, what to watch, and where you're going to get it from, right? Same thing with books, right? We've diversified in a lovely way for people to get their needs met. However, making a choice is overwhelming, right? And so we do it for 3 reasons. 1, they need to feel like they are in control. Let's be real. We tell kids what to do, where to go, how to look, how to dress, right? What they need to read, what they need to write, right? There is very little control a child or youth has, regardless of their age. So that's one piece of it. The second piece is building agency and confidence in making a decision, right? How many parents make decisions for their kids all day long? We're so used to making, and I can say this as teachers, we're so used to making decisions all day long, so we just keep doing it for our kids, and we forget that there's an internal process that happens in our mind to make those decisions. Our kids don't know what that is, right? And so we need to be more explicit in that piece. How do we do that? By giving them choices. And it allows them to have an internal motivation, right? We did this in education, so you can blame us, but we really went to this reward system that doesn't work, right? There's years of it. It doesn't mean we don't give our kids rewards, right? But we also need to figure out how to tailor that back if we start to use that when we're giving them control. So I also want to talk about different choice types. When it's younger, it's very easy. What would you like to eat? An apple, right? Or an orange? We give 2 choices. We give 3 choices. I had a parent yesterday in Newark say to me, well, my child only wants to eat pasta sides when I ask what to eat. You want to know why? Because they know they're going to get fed and they know they're going to like it. They don't know that all these other foods exist out in the world. They don't know all these other friends exist in this world, all these other books exist in the world, right? The younger they are, the perception they don't have. So giving them choices is how we start that process. That also means if you have a teenager right now and you've never really had that discussion, you start to include them in choices for activities, for our family vacations, for, the treat we might have this week, what we might have for dinner, but more choices that you support them in making and they feel safe making, the more likely they're going to do that more and more and then take that on to be able to do themselves. The other thing to notice is types of choices. This or that is one thing. I think we all got that down. But if I said to you, hey, we're all gonna go out to dinner tonight, where do you wanna go? People are like, I can't talk about that, right? If I ask parents right now what their number one issue is, it's feeding the family. And it's true. Between allergies, some sort of type of eating, not eating kind of way, it is not like, hey, I could just make pasta, put it on the table, and everybody's eating. That world has sailed. Everyone got an opinion, a sensory, a taste bud, right? So if I ask you as an adult, hey, where do you want to go to dinner? Some of you just be like, I'm just gonna be happy with whoever we get because I'm not trying to use the mental energy to make that decision. Some of you were like, nah, I was craving sushi, so we're gonna have sushi today, right? So we're in a continuum of who's gonna be able to make that decision. So choices are one. How to do something is a choice. Our math teachers may not say the same, right, with our new math, but there are multiple ways to solve a problem, whether it's academic or whether it's interpersonal or personal. Asking about choices on which way to handle it is another way of giving a choice as they get older. How many, who will help, and maybe even what color. I cannot stress the importance and foundation this is into decision-making and also managing themselves. And I know it sounds so simple about choice and control, but where else are they gonna learn to make those in a safe environment to continue to make them? And it's okay if they fail, because we're also gonna be there to support them in that choice as well. Let's talk routines. I think this is every educator's like, make sure we have a routine structure, right? So I'm just gonna say this, who are my high structured individuals in here? Mm-hmm. Anyone get upset as soon as that whole schedule is going off? Yeah, there's some of you. I'm not that person. I'm what I call a flexible planner. I have these ideals, and then I have what comes to fruition. Yep, so let's talk about them. Why? It doesn't matter remember if they're in kindergarten or if they're in 12th grade, this matters. It builds healthy habits. What do you know? Do something 7 times, it automatically becomes a habit. Give you an example. You're gonna see my kid's nighttime routine that we've had for years. And now all I have to say is, would you like to take a bath? And he runs right up those stairs, takes those baths, gets his pajamas, goes to bed, and he's out. If you knew the 4-hour struggle it was for years before we got to that point, right? So routines matter because they build healthy habits that they automatically do. The one thing I'm not worried about is my kid will be clean, has clean hygiene, and brushes his teeth. That's all I got. Well, I don't know about anything else moving forward, but this one I got. It does build confidence. They know they can do it. They can do it themselves. If I can do it, then I can do other things. We're building confidence along the way. It reduces stress. Remember, choices, not knowing causes stress. I'll give you an example. I like to use my kids. Isn't that fun? I told you I was an imperfect parent. Got a phone call last week. School counselor called. Hey, Avery got upset during testing. So they sent him to the counselor. Guess what it was? He was upset because he didn't know the answer and no one told him he can go on. He didn't know the process was, I could skip this question and I could move on. Once she gave him that permission, split second, he was okay, a different person came back and started the test. But something that small causes that much stress on all of our kids. And so having a routine reduces the unknown. And what we're finding is the unknown is very fearful for some of our kids. It also reinforces values for whatever you want to support there. Some of you are really into the church, right? It's a part of your weekend or weekly routine. It's an automatic, right? Because it was always part of the routine. And it removes the emotion. You don't have to nag, just keep pointing at the list, right? Where are you in this process? It's not about me, it's not about you and our conversation, where are you in this process? So what I am gonna also say is it has to be visual. I don't care, 24 years old in college or kindergarten. Every child's first language right now without emotion is visual. If you also knew how many years I would say, you need to go to the bathroom during potty training, I'd get till I'm screaming in the face and literally lifting the kid up. Then we just changed it to the simple visual of the toilet. Run, no emotion, no pushback, no nothing. And so what I'm saying is visuals matter the most. So what you're seeing for early ages are the best, the basic things that people need to get dressed, right? So this was part of like, how do I get dressed? Here's a visual schedule on what that looks like as they are learning. They're gonna progress. For those of you who have younger kids or older kids and you wanna create a visual schedule, this is actually an app and they get to move it. I like it because there's stock photos and I don't have to look stuff up, but I took a photo of my car and I use my car in it. So it's like there's some things that are ours and some things that are clip art and generic. Oh, sorry. This was the morning routine. I kid you not, practiced this for many, many years and I don't have to fight because he couldn't stand socks and shoes. And once we understood what the problem were with the socks and shoes, we changed them. And the rest of the routine went flawless. But now it's automatic. I don't have to show it, but every once in a while, when I'm in a rush, here you go. No emotion, no power struggle, keep moving. This was today, everyone. I had to create this today. Remember, I got caught in virtual schooling. And so hand mommy your iPad, log into Schoology, listen and focus, start your work, go back to Zoom. Once your work is complete, you get to enjoy the day. I don't have to say any of this. They look at it, they read it, they don't hear me. They hear themselves telling themselves what their schedule is. And it also, again, takes control out of it. So now let's talk communication. Just want to be clear, it's going to get a little touchy here, okay? Praise. How many times do you say, good job? Great job. Right? That doesn't matter anymore. It matters in the sense that we're giving positive praise. What does matter is that we have to be very specific about it, right? It helps us recognize, right, that they're done well and why. We know this in education. You've heard this as parents previously, but it is something I've had to incorporate. Just like people incorporate mindfulness, I have to be very clear. So for every power struggle you have with your child or a not good exchange, you need 5 positive things to negate that. Most of it is giving praise, but it also has to be very specific, right? It also would be helpful if it's a surprise, because what we don't want is people pleasers. I say that very nicely, just in the greater scheme of things. People do a lot of things to please people. And then they spend their entire 20 to 40s figuring out, if I had just figured out what I wanted for myself, all of that would have changed differently. And so praise is very specific, and I've made it a part of my day to figure out, hey, did I say it at least once or twice to each one of my kids today? And I make that be a part of my daily routine because they need it. And I'm not gonna lie, the reality of them getting in school isn't always the case either. And so we encourage teachers to make sure that they are praising positive things and to be very specific about it. But in a class of 30, it's really hard how many people you get to on a daily basis, but not you. You're your kid's champion. And so you can be specific with that praise. I'm gonna keep moving to validating emotions. This is what we teach master levels counselors. So I want to be very clear. This is not an easy thing to do, but it is an easy concept to start to understand. As a parent, you would say there's a problem behavior. The moment we make it about us, what we need, and disregard their feelings, we've completely lost them. We've invalidated it. Now they're not just angry about the situation or whatever the emotion is. They're also saying, hey, you don't know how to comfort me either, and we get more of a behavior problem. So the only way to negate that is to validate feelings and emotions. And sometimes that's sitting quietly for 5 minutes while your child's upset and then validating the feelings. But it helps them recognize it, regulate, and become less of a problem. And this is not something that happens overnight. Again, it has to be part of a reoccurring routine. I will say this, because I don't want this pushback about behavior. Remember that every feeling is acceptable. We can't tell people how to feel, right? But maybe every behavior is not, and that's the important part of that. So how do we validate them? Well, we're gonna validate them so they feel safe, seen, and understood and valued, and that they can trust you as a parent. That's everyone's fear, right? As a parent, is that your kid's gonna stop talking to you. And it does developmentally, right? They talk more to their friends the older they get in middle school and high school. And that also is thinking about, is that the only interactions that they're getting, right? Is their teachers the only other positive adults? Are their coaches or pastors the only other positive adults? Who else is validating them if it is not me, right? And so we all say this, you'll get over it. There's no reason to be upset. Stop whining, it's not that big of a deal, or I don't necessarily want to hear it. We've all said these things, right? But I would like to point out, in the moment, you're allowed to do what you do to your people. The difference is, once we've calmed down and regulated, being able to say to our own children, you know what, that probably wasn't the best response. I would say mommy, I don't know why I talk in third person, but I do, the thing. You do too? Great. I don't know why. Why do we do that? I'm not looking that up. But, you know, mommy wasn't really herself, and this was not about you. And so I want to validate, you were really angry earlier, and I did not handle it well. Here's what I'm going to try and do better next time, and apologize, right? That's all we can do. What does it do? It models conflict resolution. It models that we don't not like each other because we just had a bad exchange, right? And that I am going to try and do better, and maybe you're also going to try and do better. That also means, as I've shared, we need to increase the vocabulary. I've recently realized this, that they've communicated in those middle grade ranges so much with texting that there's not always an emotion associated with it. And so they're not communicating feelings and emotions in the way that we would have done in a different timeline, in a different era, in a different decade. And so there is no exchange of feelings and emotions. They keep that out as part of the conversation we're communicating. So that also means we have students who have become either completely sensitive in one direction with no outlet, which then leads to internalization, or we've led to apathy. Like there is no emotional exchange between peers. And that's a scary thought to think, like, let's raise a generation who's not having feelings and thoughts, right? And we also didn't communicate it. We know from a different generation previously, we weren't good at communicating. We weren't allowed to talk about certain things outside the house. That's not this generation. They're willing to bring up anything and any topic. There are no boundaries. No boundaries, but why would there be? There was never a check and balance, and we've just allowed them to communicate in the ways that they communicate. And so this becomes really instrumental because they don't know beyond mad, sad, glad, and angry, right? There's a lot of feelings, right, wrapped up in that. And so how to validate is picking a feeling word that you think matches that moment in time. Sounds like you seem frustrated, and acknowledging it's okay to be frustrated. I did a presentation for strength-based communication for teachers, and I had them role play. I had someone be a student. You know, they all want to play a student with that behavior, let's be real. And then I had two pretend teachers with them, one a strength-based communicator and one a negative communicator. And so the negative people would go first, and they go at it, and you'd see what you would typically see on any TV show or in a school down the hall, right? And then when the strength-based communication, all they did was validate their feelings, the student couldn't come back at it. Oh, think about it. You're like caught dead in your tracks. Like, yes, that's exactly how I'm feeling. That's what you want in those moments where your kid is upset. That doesn't mean the behavior is going to get better overnight, but that relationship recognizing the feeling is a huge part of that, which leads to coping skills. So I'm going to ask you as adults, do you have a different coping skill for when you're angry versus when you're frustrated or when you're mad at yourself for something that you didn't do well? I don't know. You might always have the same coping skill. I do not. Nothing goes according to plan in my life, so everything has its own little free-for-all aspect. And I've also learned that any coping skill I had pre-COVID is non-existent currently, and I'm really still learning all my new coping skills. And so we might also be in that same boat. We know that physical, creative aspects and outlet, journaling, artwork, right? All of we talked about mindfulness for years. Even I talked about mindfulness for years. Who knew it really does change brain structure? Who knew it does change how people emotionally interact with one another? It opens up these neural pathways. So my suggestion for you is when you are in a scenario with your child who's upset and you validated their emotions, Once they've calmed down in a way, it seems, we talked about you were frustrated. What coping skill might work the next time we are in this scenario? Talking may not be it for kids, right? So what else can we do? And match the emotion to the coping skill. And it could also be part of your emotional safety plan as you build it together. I do want to say 2 things about how you talk. I've shared this again, but this is my secret. You see someone seeing red, adult or kid alike, you lower your voice as much as you can, and it's automatic. Their brain just follows you and brings them down. So you can regulate by using a lower voice. That also means talking slower too. The slower you talk and the lower you talk, the more the people you're interacting with, including your own children, are going to model for you. The other thing is, we say this all the time, but getting down on their level. If you have a kid kicking and screaming on the floor, I sit on the floor and I wait patiently, because you'd be surprised at how long they can't cry, hit, right? They get tired, right? It's emotionally and physically exhausting. And so we're asking you to get down on the ground also. A lot of times we walk away, right? Because we're like, okay, wait, we're going to let them, and then we're going to come back and have that conversation. The walking away just amplifies how unsafe they feel. So I'm saying, even if you are with a child who is really having an outburst of any kind, the more you can stay in that same space to continue to make it a safer space. The moment you walk away, they do feel abandoned, right? Even if I said, it seems like you're going to hurt me, so I'm going to just step over here and I'll be here when you're ready, right? Because if they look around, they're so upset and there's no one in the room and you're the safest person to them, then they also feel this slight abandonment that they would never be able to explain to you, and it's only going to amplify that behavior. So the last thing I'm going to highlight here is you. We all communicate differently. We communicate in talking, right? Email, text, even handwriting. Me personally, I don't communicate the same way at all. I don't. My real voice is probably in handwriting, to be honest, and not necessarily in a text or an email. But we're all responsible for communication. And I want to talk about why we fail at it. We either avoid or stay silent, and we do this. I can't deal with you today, so we're not going to have this conversation, right? We either attack a person, we don't care too much, we maybe didn't have a role model, or we're hijacked by emotion. And I say that to say, how you communicate with the other people in your household, any level of family member, from partner to other sibling to your mom or a grandparent living in the home, it matters, right? We've never really taken a step back, looked at our family dynamics and think, this is what they see all the time. And so we teach kids that there are 3 communication patterns. There are 4, we teach 3 up through 5th grade. And they are the mouse, the bear, and the owl. Passive, aggressive, and assertive. And we say assertive is the goal. But there are times where you're going to have to be passive. Someone's belligerent, right? Someone's angry. You're not going to be aggressive or assertive with people who are not seeing clearly, right? And then come 5th grade, we up it to the 4th one. Anybody know what the 4th one is? That's right. Passive aggressive is the 4th one. It's also called indirect discretion. The reason we actually teach this to students is so they start to recognize unhealthy patterns. Also, for bullying perspectives, passive aggressive is a form of bullying also, right? I'm too polite to be mean to you, so I'm going to do it in a sly way and get away with it, right? Social media, tech, we all do this to each other. I'm not going to be real. Part of what I heard on those comments, right, about interpersonal relationships at times. And passive aggressive is a way to do that. And I say that to say, everyone has arguments. Everyone has disagreements. What happens to people who are passive aggressive is they end up having these communication patterns. I won't go into all of them for lack of time, but they either make people feel guilty, they change the subject. This is my favorite. You've had this happen, where you're in a conversation and you're going crazy because they're not listening to what you're saying and they keep changing the subject. And then all of a sudden you look like you're out of your mind and they purposely did it, right? And so I say this to say is I don't know what your family dynamics look like at home. But what I can say, your communication patterns matter to how your kids perceive communication, feelings, and emotions. And if we don't change that cycle and start looking at ourselves, then we're also just passing that down. And so I say that to say, with bullying on the rise and mental health being on the rise, those things are going to conflate, and they're going to be larger than what we're really equipped to be able to handle. And so we need to take a hard look at ourselves. What I will say to you is I am a kitchen sink fighter. This is where passive aggressive people come. Because if I'm going to open up the door, then all those things I held in for 6 months, they're going to come out in that moment. And I know this about myself, right? Doesn't mean I have perfected it. I'm just saying I'm more self-aware right now that I'm really working on it. More so with my spouse than anything else, right? Because there's things that we let go. Every day we make these decisions. This is important, this is not important, this is not important, right? And then when you open up those floodgates, it all comes out. And again, we're human. You're okay to be human. But what I also need to do is then the next day rectify that with my kids. And to really take a hard look at myself, be like, I was in the moment, this is where I was, but this is not what I want for you, and here's what I'm trying to work on. And so I say that to say, right now, adults, parents, and teachers alike are our kids' greatest advocates in breaking the cycle. So I've created, or I didn't create this, I found this parent chart for you as reminders. I hugged my kid for no reason, because, we're going to have them help create our routine. So I figured, parents, you need your own. Help my kid clean their room. Shockingly enough, they don't know how to clean. I want to be very clear. If I told them where everything went, and I had words. And even that is overwhelming, right? Don't think that they automatically know what your expectations of what clean looks like, because they do need to be taught to be able to do that. Taking a calming breath, it used to work for me. It takes a lot longer, many more breaths to get to the same level. Playing a board game. When's the last time you played a board game and not a video game? I played Connect 4 this weekend. I also got into pickleball. It's a whole other family dynamic happening. Apologize when you get upset. Show grace, right? When they get upset, did something silly just to make you laugh. I shared this last time, how I get out of any mood for particularly my son, and most of the time my daughter, is to show a funny meme. It's just similar to you standing up and doing that regulation. A funny meme does that for our kids. And did something just for you because you also want to be calm for your kid. So I say this to say, in the interest of time, I'm going to take questions, but I'm going to highlight our takeaways. We're going to create an emotional safety plan, and then we're going to share it with our family and co-create it. And we might even build more coping skills into it as we learn. We're going to give consistent daily specific praise and spontaneous at different times, validate their feelings and emotions, help teaching coping skills that match emotions while building their emotional literacy. And we're going to take a hard look at our communication patterns so that we can break the cycle for what we're teaching our students and our youth. Now, for those of you who do want the PowerPoints and last PowerPoint, that QR code is a link to Winslow, a folder I created for Winslow, or you can write down that link so you can have both of them. And I will take questions. That's a question? Yeah.
Yes. When you was talking about choice,
Yeah.
home, what can you offer to administrators, educators, to help them when the parents are trying to teach their kids about the power of choice? But when they come into the classroom, that wipes away. So how do we bring balance to our children so they don't feel like they're being controlled anymore, but they know how to be balanced in the classroom to take instruction?
Yeah. That's a loaded question.
Yeah, it is. And we need to figure that one out real fast.
We do. But I will admit that does come down to a teacher and a parent relationship too. And not that parents or teachers on either end, there are people who are at fault in relationships, right? But it does really come down to that. I would also think about it, what we can give control for in the classroom, that we can say at home you have control over these choices. But here at school, in my classroom, there are certain things that we have to do. But here are the places and spaces where you will have choices. It's actually one of the things we started to tell teachers a long time ago was, if you have an assignment, don't have it be one way. Let them have options of how they want to give that information to you, right? In the sense of it could be project A versus project B, or here's the project. It could be a video, it could be this, it could be a creative outlet, or whatever the case may be. Those are the choices they're looking for. And actually that came out of the middle school survey last year, coming off the COVID, was that they want more choices. They want more voice and more choice in what they are learning and what they are producing. And so if you can normalize, here are the choices you have at home with mom, she shared, or dad, they shared that with us. But here are where you're gonna have the choices in our classroom. And that way, there's times that you have a choice, and then there's times that you don't have a choice. And that's what I can say on the fly. I have to really deeply think about that. But you nodded, so that worked for me.
Yes,
Okay. Any other questions?
I have no question, if no one else has a question.
Okay, you came with your notebook ready to go. We're all in. I'm all in.
Because I'm all about the mental health of not just our
Yes.
students, but also of our educators.
Yes.
Because without them having, that outlet also,
Yes.
it's hard for them to teach our children. I
Yeah.
have 6 grandchildren inside of our school system right now.
Yes.
And I need to feel safe,
Yes.
knowing that when my grandchildren are coming up to the schools, that their health and their mental health
Yes.
is first and foremost paramount and more important than anything else that goes.
Yes. So I'm gonna die on this hill.
Yes.
Dr. Petit knows this. I just spent the year running what I call educator SEL groups in a couple of districts. And I also had doc students doing it. And the hill I'm dying in is for kids and teachers alike, or adults alike, that they need a planning period and a processing period. And a processing period is this. It is working on their own social emotional learning in a guided way, 45 minutes during their planning period, in a group atmosphere and dynamic, so they're all supporting, helping each other. And it's not negative, they can't complain, it's very structured. This is actually one of the activities I did with your superintendent that got me here, right? We did one on ethical, responsible decision-making. And so I spent the year doing it. And I asked them just recently, I just sent out all these results. How do you think this can work, right? And this is what they said. We ourselves need to process the trauma that we are ultimately dealing with. And as a counselor, I know this burnout right now. The state is so worried, just so you know, about school-based mental health professionals, school psych, social work, and school counseling. And there is a lot of money going around right now for that reason, because how do we sustain the services? And so part of it is breaking down in schools, right? CST, and how everybody's working together on the services and working through tiers. But I would argue we are in what I call the go, go, go culture. And what we all thought about during COVID was, isn't this great? I'm not gonna lie, I didn't have to go to sports, I didn't have to do all these things. For like 2 weeks, I was like, woo, this is great, right? After that's a whole different ballgame. We thought in education that we would take a break, right? Like we would slow things down, we would get back to basics. And we were like, nope, everyone just said we need to keep moving, we need to keep moving. So as a result, I say this about classroom instruction also. When do students get services? I've been a school counselor and a school counselor educator for over 24 years. What I can say to you is, depending on the school, depending on the groups I was allowed to run, even just for students. Why? They can't miss class instruction. No, but what's the difference between them learning instruction, right? Walking away from it, doing other things, and then processing it later and working on that instruction again. That's what we're asking teachers to be able to do. They're gonna go, 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 go. They have their own kids, but whatever. But where is it built into their day professionally that we value who they are, and kids alike, right? That value, that processing time. Because that processing time is where all that growth is gonna happen as a professional educator, as a parent, and as a student. And right now, it's not in the minutes in our school day that's required. And so I again, am advocating, I'm using this research to advocate to die on this hill. Everyone needs a planning period and a process period. Because we also can't, parents are saying, hey, we have all these behaviors. Yeah, also come into the classroom. I want you to see 30 of them in one moment in time, and us as educators doing the best we can to manage. It's hard. And we have people who are phenomenal teachers that we ultimately could lose just because it takes a toll. We all know stress internalizes, right? We have autoimmune disease are number one among teachers. Why? High stress levels. And there's no time at the end of the day, right? Nobody wants to talk to you at the end of the day. That faculty meeting better be on a Monday, because as the week moves on, right? No one necessarily wants to be there. But where do we value them and where do we put that in? And I know that's not necessarily a parental thing, but it is a parental thing from an advocacy perspective. Our teachers need support. They need their own, when are they gonna get their own mental health alleviated, right? And it all falls down to, do they know their communication patterns? Do they know how to manage their emotions? And so it all comes back to, we're all learning social emotional learning, right? Social emotional skills and academic skills embedded in it. But where are we providing the professional development in ways for teachers to increase their interpersonal skills? Because that also matters for the students who are coming in the future. I know that's a long story, but.
That was great.
Okay.
I have one more question if no one else has anything.
They're all listening, so that's good. They haven't left.
What insight can you give us and everyone that's listening on how we can better the parent and teacher engagement? Because that's one of the biggest beasts that we're suffering right now. We keep talking about the parents need to be more engaged with the teachers, but what can we do to help the teachers even be more engaged with the parents as well? Because a lot of parents are afraid to call up the teacher. Teachers are afraid to call up parents and afraid of being cursed out or something. How do we help them get past that fear?
Cool. So that's a longer one too. Because, as someone who's been running these groups for a while, what I can also say is apathy means that I don't want to call the parent. I'm automatically writing a referral, right? Every policy, I don't care what school district you're in, is, hey, you reach out to the parent first, you address it first, and then you move on. We're at this place in space where teachers don't have the mental capacity to actually reach out. Not because of fear of just cursing out, like they just don't have it in them. And where does that fit in their school day? So let me get this straight. You want me to plan for 45 minutes, you want me to be able to call all those parents, you want me to also grade, right? We don't operate in the same way as businesses do, right? There is no luxury and there's no freedom. And so if I have 45 minutes and I'm covering a class 3 days a week as a result of that being my planning period, when am I calling parents? So there's a catch and pull. And then there are teachers who go out of their way to communicate with parents, at least in an email, right? To get the chain of events starting. But teachers are fearful of how their communication looks in email. How is this going to be read? I mean, these are activities I've done with them, so I've heard all of this narrative. They're fearful of even what an email might say. And then administrators are like, this is not that big of a deal, so I'm not addressing it. And then teachers don't feel vindicated because their administrator didn't support them, but their administrator didn't have enough time in the day to support them either because it was something that needed to happen between the teacher and the student. So I'm not saying I have a solution. It is a larger growing problem. And the more we are experiencing what I'm going to call burnout, the harder it's going to be to bring that relationship together. And so it really has to start at a school level, in a school community, and work within that school climate to then be able to branch it out. But I mean, you have teachers who see each other once throughout the day and no longer, there's no teacher happy hour anymore. How about that? There's just no time for them to engage with one another. And so there's not even like a friendly relationship at times too. And then how do you then extend that to the parents, right? So there's a lot that we once had in our heart to give, and there's a lot more that's taken from us. So it's really hard to give, right? And there's not a one-shot solution on how we're going to refill our hearts back up to be able to continue to give in all of those ways. I don't know the answer.
Now the child suffers though.
No.
Because if there's an underlying problem that needs to be addressed, it's not being addressed.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. It was a daycare example. I had a colleague call me the other day. There's how many people are in this daycare, half of them are potty trained, half of them are out, and she's just like, you know what, I can't do that anymore. So the first accident they have a diaper. And then it sets the parent back, right? All the way back based on the interactions that were happening. So I would say we all have a role in this. And there are brilliant parents, there are brilliant educators, there are brilliant administrators who I think collectively can start to come together, but it really is about student first and student wellness. And I think here's what we've also forgot, their voice. I was very happy to hear that from the state today, that they're really moving on youth voice initiatives so that there's a lot more say coming from students, because I've shared this with you last time. Their brains are not structured to how we teach across this country. Our school system schedule does not match how they learn, does not match their bodies, their minds, and their emotions. And we've done our best job at trying to create things centered around the schedule that's already set, but that also is a part of it too. And so the more we listen to, I think, to our youth, who really are living this, the more I think that change can also occur too. I am hopeful, people. It's just a slow hopeful. You seen systems? It's the systems. The people are great. Systems a little slow. Yeah. Right? All systems have great people. You know how many great people work in this district? It's a large district. Yes. I can name 10 off the top of my head. Right? So I believe in them. But we overburden those people too. Because the good get it all. And I believe you're all good because you're here. So there's that.
So Dr. are we looking for a magic bullet here?
Are we looking for a magic bullet? So I will say this for the first time ever, I am very happy with the one branch of the State Department of Ed that is really working on, you know what, we're not allowing you in your communities anymore to figure it all out. We're gonna have some mandatory things coming our way in the student support realm. But that also is gonna change how we do special ed and CST and all of those things. So we are progressive. This group at the state level is very progressive, and I'm very happy. And I've only lived in New Jersey for 13 years, but I've been trying to work with people at the state level to change some things. And this is the first time I've been hopeful. So, and they got federal money to do it. So I'm gonna go with that. And as someone who trains school counselors, they're all gonna have paid internships. They're all getting clinical supervision. They're increasing diversity and multilingual for school psychology, social work, school counselors. So yeah, I'm excited about that piece, but also that piece should have happened prior to COVID anyway, right? But now the impetus is here. And I do think once we get that and student voice is a part of it, I think we'll start to see things slowly change because our youth are great advocates. If you can see the work that they put in, a lot of youth participatory action research projects, they want to change the world. This is a very social just generation. And I believe in them. And it's little things like boundaries. We're all like, boundaries. Yeah, well, guess what? People didn't talk about their periods about a decade ago either, right? So think about all abuse. Think about all the things and boundary crossing that have changed over time. And so we look at them and be like, they don't have boundaries. No, that's how they communicate. And they're saying to us, y'all need to change what you do to meet us. Every generation's done that. We're just looking at it from a different perspective. So my money's on them.
And so the changes that we're talking about would you say that they're
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And written in stone. It's great. Today I did spend 2 hours during that virtual meeting, during virtual schooling on that meeting. It was the first time I've ever walked away feeling like, yes. Now the dude is going to go on paternity leave in the summer, but he's coming back. So I'm just letting you know, he's not leaving his job, he's coming back. I don't know what that means for you as superintendents and for you as boards, but I do know that they are prioritizing student wellness and student voice. I'm not saying they're getting rid of the policies for academic learning. Yeah.
I understand that the state is making those changes through various initiatives. But how long is it going to take to filter down to us?
So this first round right now, you all didn't apply because I feel like I wouldn't know. So I'm just gonna throw this out here. For the school-based mental health grant that they got the federal money for. You were on the list, right? There were like 200 districts. They told us only 52 applied and about 25 will get it. And what that means is they have the money to build the structures, but they're building in the sustainability plan so that everyone has access to what those plans are. So I would say 3-4 years. Yeah.
Now, they have provided us monies for mental health programs and things of that sort, which we've already put in place.
Yes.
So the foundation's already there. But based on what you shared with us, it seems like they're going to do more, want to do more.
For students.
Right.
That's not going to change the adults in the building. So I want to put that out there.
Right.
Like we have to get smarter. And that's what they also said. They are bringing together leadership academies that everyone who was on the eligible list will be invited to. So including BAs, school boards, administrators, superintendents, that they're also going to train in these leadership academies, even though they're not necessarily affiliated with the grant, so that they can teach you on the back end how to change budget structures to match what you might potentially need to sustain some levels of this aspect or to allocate for the adults. But I also want to be clear, there are also paraprofessionals are a part of our mental health services. And so there's a huge training in a lot of districts who want to keep their paraprofessionals. So they're raising, some of those people in the grant are raising how much they pay paraprofessionals. They're providing them with training in college classes. Because then I'll say this, my kid has a one-to-one aide. When they took away because somebody else needed an aide, he sees that as a grief and loss, and it sets him back 2 weeks, right? And we see the transients in paraprofessionals. And so I'm just gonna put out there that everyone is a value in our schools, and paraprofessionals are an undervalued resource who really could support our students, and especially in mental health first aid, because they are nurses to students at times as well. So, yeah, I mean, that's what you know what I know today. Yay! I'm excited to see where it goes, but it doesn't change where we are right now, right? But there's hope, and we need hope, people. Without hope, yes. So with that, I want to wish everyone a good night. I appreciate you being here. I also appreciate our conversations, and I'll always take your questions. No, but that's my email right there. It's just my last page. It's an I. Thank you for coming.
Okay, so these are, because you have a system, they do also make the portable mics, right? Like that just are on without their own. Okay. I'm considering, but it's buying one. I needed one yesterday, that's why.
I'll send it to you. Okay. Okay. I'll send it.
Mrs. Fitz. Mrs. Fitz, Mrs. Fitz. We have to do a motion. Oh, okay.
Yes. Yeah, but even right there now. Trust me, I've gotten that.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, yeah, she can be. Glass is always half full, never half empty. Oh, you're sick. Great. I give it much time to learn. Yes, ma'am.
Guarantee that. I'll see you there.
All in favor? Aye. Any nays? Okay, meeting adjourned.
Is that okay?
The joke.